Welcome back to CinemaFlix Music Picks. I'm Davey, your host with the most, the beast with the least. The least I can do today is carry on with our look back at 2022, the year that was, in albums. And a caveat, as always, these are in no particular order until we get to my top 5. So joint number 6 is Blu Rev by Alvvays, Canada's finest at the moment. What Alvvays have been in the past is a great jangle pop indie sounds band. What they've evolved into is something quite different. We'll come to. Still there, but they've evolved into something quite different. A little bit of backstory on this though. They had a terrible time producing this record. We all had, of course, lockdown and horrible times over the past few years. Even before that, they were snake bitten. Molly Rankin, the lead singer, had all the demos stolen from her computer that were on the laptop. Her laptop was nicked, not recovered, so they had to start from scratch, lest everything just be pre-release leaked. And the day that she told the band, "I'm sorry guys, the laptop's been stolen," their studio flooded and their gear. Yeah, and then when they reconvened to say, okay, let's give it another shot, lockdown happened. So, fair to say this was not a particularly easy ride. These difficult waters to navigate, quite symbolic cover really. Probably sum up how they feel about getting to where they now are, that they've released this finally. 13 tracks are listed, but there's actually 14. There's a terrific hidden bonus track, it's only a minute long, but it's absolutely gorgeous. What they've added here is a little bit of shoegaze, a lot of synth pop, and a bit more dream pop, which suits lead singer Molly Rankin's voice perfectly. Molly Rankin, if you haven't heard her voice, is one of the best singers going at the moment. She's got the wonderful ability to sound kind of ethereal, but also be grounded, so it doesn't sound too airy-fairy, you know. It doesn't sound like it's spit in the rain, you know. It's still grounded enough for you to latch onto it. It's not like trying to catch the wind. She's got a wonderful grounded sensibility to it, a bit like Kirsty MacColl. You know, she can kind of have this wonderful airy quality but still keep it grounded on planet Earth. And her writing partner on the record, Alec, who also plays guitars in the band, they have come up with these wonderful new tracks. And he's a brilliant guitar player, by the way. He plays some terrific old school riffs. If you are someone who, and I should just credit the rest while I'm here because there's only a couple more members. Kerry McClellan's on keys and vocals, Sheridan Riley's on drums, and Abby Blackwell's on bass. You won't hear the rhythm section too heavily. It's not that kind of band. They tend to focus more on the synths and the guitars, and Molly Rankin's vocals, of course. But what you get with this record in particular is, again, a more evolved Alvvays. They sound more mature than they did, which they should do. They're in the 30s now rather than the 20s when the last album came out. But they still write these wonderfully, some of them are upbeat and wonderfully infectious pop songs. Some of them are very melancholy, but they all have something in common that keeps them tied thematically, so nothing seems like it's jumping around. You know, you never think, I wouldn't have put that in there. It all sounds of a piece. It all sounds, you know, a lot of the songs are about breakups and arguments and, you know, that kind of thing. It's personal things. It's not about the state of the world. It's not a protest album. It's nothing. It's very me and you kind of stuff, but in a very esoteric fashion. To demonstrate what I mean, there's a track on here called Tom Verlaine, the genius from television, which has got just such an infectious chorus. And if you're leaving, it better be for good. You were my Tom Verlaine, sitting on my hood. It's so wonderfully catchy. You get references to bizarre things like Jessica Fletcher from Murder, She Wrote, R.I.P. Angela Lansbury, we miss you already. Belinda Says is one of the tracks on here, and wonderfully it is indeed a reference to Belinda Carlisle, which maybe gives you some of the ideas of the kind of influences they have. And again, there's another great vocalist who had the ability to be ethereal and grounded at the same time, Belinda Carlisle from the Go-Go's, and a wonderful solo career as well. But yeah, when Belinda says heaven is a place on earth, well, so is hell. That's about as dark as it gets on this record. It's still done so, even though they're saying something really dark like that, like, well, if heaven's on earth and so is hell, they're adding that Belinda Carlisle inspired that line, you know. So it's always very esoteric, very fun, very innovative, bit tongue-in-cheek. And that track, Belinda Says, is such a catchy tune as well, with the whole I'm in paradise and I'm paralyzed. They are a wonderful pop rock band who have influences from the 80s with the synth sounds, definitely with British indie pop and rock, like Stone Roses through Oasis, even up to the Killers. I can hear them certainly being inspired by that kind of thing too. But credit also has to go on this record to their producer, who produced that wonderful War on Drugs album from a couple of years ago, and he's a terrific engineer as well, Sean Everett. It's a wonderful sounding record. I mean, terrific sounding record. When someone says to you, oh, you don't get good music anymore, do you? Nobody's making good music. This is the kind of thing you can play them, and even if it isn't their cup of tea, they have to admit it sounds great. There's no auto-tune here. There's a lot of reverb, but you know, reverb has been part of music for a million years. There's no parts that make you think, that sounds very like the computer's done all the hard work for them there. You know, no, it's a very organic sounding album. It's very much based on, as I said, the synths, the vocal, the guitar. So it's still a band. You know, it's very much a band, and with Molly Rankin just like a force of nature at the front there, just sounding like very feminine, but like she could take the world on at the same time. She's wonderful. She's one of my favourite singers working today. So you get real bangers like Pomeranian Spinster and Velveteen, and then you get really low key and melancholic songs like Bored in Bristol, After the Earthquake, and it may be the only album or the only band I can think of who reference the Scottish city of Inverness in a song. That's him. Belinda Says she thinks she might move to Inverness. Don't know why. It's a nice place, but it's full of Scottish people. Anyway, if you like the sound of any of this kind of stuff, so wonderful, not slick, but just well produced modern pop rock that isn't auto-tunes, that's organic as hell, that's infectious as hell. It sounds like the kind of thing you've heard before. You put this on and I guarantee, although they're all wonderfully original tracks, you're going to be saying, gosh, it feels like I do know that song, even though it's all new stuff. And there's no higher compliment than to say that, really. So yep, Blu Rev by Alvvays is joint number 6 on the album countdown of 2022. So thank you very much, and stay safe out there. Sounds like someone hasn't, as the sirens are blaring. But love and mercy until next time. I think they're coming for me. Love and mercy again.